Great day in the morning, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters. The session that you are about to hear has been patched together over the weekend. I wanted to pop in real quick to let you know that by me piecing this together, there will be several instances inside of the main portion of this session, or should I say part one of this session, that speaks a lot about the transcript that will go along with this session. Now, here's the deal. I recorded the session. No. Let me back up. I produced the transcript. Then I recorded the session reading the main part of the transcript. Then the first session of this segment was interrupted and ended up being an entire 48 hours. So, in the meantime, within those 48 hours, I went back and did some edits to the transcript. So, and then now, right now, deciding that I'm not going to reread the edits. So in part one of the session, I advised you to pause and go and pull up on the transcript and read along. You may do that. You're more than welcome, but you will see where it differs. And so I just wanted to pop in real quick with this intro to let you know that as you get into the main session of our time together, if in fact you do follow along with the transcript in front of you, some things will have been changed. But anywho, I hope that you find the session informative, provoking, enlightening. And so, yeah, stay tuned. I think we're going to have a good time. Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three. Hello there, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters. Welcome to Memorial Day weekend. It's a beautiful place to be in Washington, D.C. Yes, it is. Regardless of all that is going on, if you have peace with self, you have peace of mind, body, and soul. And that's a lot to be intrigued by. It's even more so intriguing if, in fact, you follow the influences of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the planetary alignments around how one could be better enriched, more wiser, more vibrant, more curious with life. With that being said, I am dedicating this segment to divine femininity, as this segment is exclusively speaking about the new moon in Gemini. With my Virgo moon, which is also a uh, a core, yeah, it's a core component of the planet Mercury as well as Gemini. I am in this sisterly energy right now. Mercury is having its way with me, and we're in measures that leaves me speechless, has been leaving me speechless. So please forgive me right off the break for the pauses or the moments when I have to dance with my words a bit. The influx and energy has me intrigued. I am at awe. I am bumping into words that I've never seen before. And that's actually saying something for a word wizard as myself. I feel the presence of those that I love deeply. And what's striking me rather remarkable is the whispers that come accompanied with certain thoughts around those that I am endeared to, asking me to suspend my judgment about what I think I know. And so, just by allowing the acceptance of that very gentle suggestion, I find my heart dancing, is skipping, is hopping and skipping and jumping around the richness of those that I have the pleasure to know or am having the pleasure getting to know. Even even those that I have not yet been introduced to, and the likelihood of complementary with an E camaraderie coming forth as this year continues to unfold. Now, I know the way that this sounds, it might give the impression that I am completely removed from the chaos just beyond the physical personal space of the human being. And I'm not. I honestly am not. But with that said, I refuse to abandon the studies that were already in session that was encouraging me to continue to analyze and observe the powers that dwell for the accommodation of the human being from the inside out. Still focusing on temetnos, which means to know thyself. Continuing to learn the language of the oracles and understand that there are tons of mystic messages that we as a collective could be missing if we allow worry to have its way with us. So I decided to do an abracadabra reading. This will be my second reading that I've hosted in the name of Abracadabra. And I know it's a bit fluffy, and not too many folks that look like me will take stock in the powers associated with the word. And of course, because the extent of knowledge around the word will probably take many within my culture to the Bugs Bunny cartoon. And I giggle because in many of my metaphysical lectures that I've sat in, have patched together the awareness that a lot of ancient text had been put inside of cartoons and illustrations and even comic books so that it could be digestible to the early learner. And so I joke quite a bit because I honestly find it tickling that a word such as abracadabra could have so much weight, but then carry so much irony in the non magical slash common sense to people. And I say this with no malice. There are those that believe in magical nuance and those that believe in logical nuance. The perspective from which I will speak today will give light to those things that just can't be explained, measured, or counted. It's the you have to feel it. Like India Ari says, you know the truth by the way that it feels. It does not have to be proven to you because your intuitive senses affirm. It's beyond the scope that says you have to see it to believe it. And I'm not really talking in the realms of religiosity. I am talking above and beyond that as well. Most often, like with many of my other conversations, we are talking more so of the non physical entities and values than we are anything that can be touched or seen with the naked eye. So at the brink of at the brink of the 2020 year, calendar year, I began to get these inner notions about April to August. I had no idea what it was about or why it kept popping up in that instance. Now, I will say a few of my tarot teachers had been mentioning it, and that really blew my mind when they did because it confirmed that I wasn't the only one who was receiving this April to August highlight of timelining. Still wondering, what is this all about? What is it all about? And I'm still not sure. I'll say that. But what I will also say is that I have taken up the call of duty to be one of the ones that will pay close attention to not only what's unfolding in my life, but what it is that I'm reading and learning and discovering in conjunction with those that I tap into for learning and teaching what it is that they have to say and when they make mention of this particular timeline. I honestly believe without trying to do too much divination, I'm not making mention of this for the likes of quote unquote fortune telling or psychic endeavor. But I am figuring that it's going to be notable. It's going to be something that not only I, but those who are in tune to the frequencies of the non physical will, how can I say this? Be in tune, become sensitive, or sustain the eye to see and the ear to hear certain things that will go above or up under the average or the one that thinks in terms of common sense. I think I've made mention of this before that I've always looked at myself as an uncommon sensor. I don't do common too much. I don't do trendy. If I if I do, yeah, shit on it, okay? But if I do take note of anything that is in conventional form or anything that has a traditional feel to it, then it's more of a classic versus because everybody thinks so. And it's by means of what I personally consider classic. With all of that said, I'm going to open up the reading with a comfy sofa conversation summit summary. And let me break down what that means. Over the course of last August, I kept bumping into um, these hiccups with the ebb and flow of conversations around the more tougher topics and trying to figure out how I could host or at least invite the notion to host conversations that could go off a little smoother if there was a comfy sofa and of course the natural essence of good food and beverage, and then the magicalness of it all if you are able to throw in some type of soothing melody or something to balance out the energies phonically. And when that intuitive nudge came to me, I immediately latched onto it because any recollection that I've ever had with regards to moments that offered up really good conversations, more likely, more so than not, there were good food, good beverage, and wonderful music part of the occasion. And so I immediately latched onto it. Yes, that's wonderful. Let's do it. I like the concept of comfy sofa conversations. Now, as the months went on, so we're now moving swiftly into 2020, and February and March is here. And so then during that time, I was becoming more familiar with my scholarship with the language of tarot and decided to make the classic language of tarot my first language. So I am now currently in the midst of learning tarot as my first language. Not many that look like me speak fluently in the terms of tarot and how they contemplate and process everyday living. Many that look like me are so spooked out by this language that it seems a shame because it renders, especially when one is familiar with the cards itself, has a first hand knowledge of the cards. I can even tell in the last couple of months how my contemplations have been enriched as a result of allowing the little bit that I know now to infuse the way that I analyze and observe. So let's put all that together. Let's have the basis of a comfy sofa conversation in conjunction with the energies that are being hosted through the new moon in Gemini. And remember, Gemini is associated with the planet Mercury, which is associated with communications, self expression, learning, self discovery. And then marry that with the language of tarot. And that will give you an idea of what we will be bouncing around and talking through during this segment. So I've titled this session, I Am Supernaturally Woman, an IQ EQ exchange. And I did that for a very specific reason, mainly because the moon is Luna, which is all emotions and all divine feminine energy. So, forsaken honorary of the Great Mother and how it continues to align with the trajectory that our emotional being is just as important as our logical being. And that for so long, the way that at least my society is set up to make your entire life based off of a head versus heart series of decisions was what was the cocktail for success. It was how the American dream could be obtained. Well, looky here. We now know that the American dream is now in a disarray, and yeah, it's going down the shit. So everyone is being called to duty to reimagine what they figured was valuable, um, pleasing, acceptable, innovative, progressive. So, with that said, I am going to read the summary transcript, which will be on, which will be hosted on Scribd. I will leave the link in the show notes. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to pause the recording, go on Scribd, get your hands on the transcript, and read along with me. That way, you will have text to concept, and maybe it will absorb a little better, especially if you've appointed yourself a scholar of self in the realms of either a comfy sofa conversation, tarot as a first language, or the energies around the new moon in Gemini. And allow yourself time to absorb. The lunar cycle is over a series of 30 days, the entire cycle, meaning by the time we get to another new moon, there will be pretty much a month gone by. So I'm figuring that I may be hosting an abracadabra reading during the phases of new moons, but I'm not really sure yet. I'm still trying to find my own lane in how I'm going to be continuing to present the information that comes across my mind, body, and soul. Let me see. What else do I want to say before I start reading? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I have attached a picture of the card layout, which probably show. Well, see, here's the deal. Because the until I actually go into editing, I'm not sure if I'm going to put the. Maybe I will. Okay. So I've just decided. So I'm going to put the image of the card layout prior to this recording. So yet again, you need to pause the or go back to, and I know it's like I'm taking you everywhere before we can really get in the groove of it. Please forgive me for fucking around with the concentration, but the layout, the image of the layout will be prior to you hearing my voice. So if you want to pause it now or go back and take a screenshot of it so that you may have it while we talk, that will be um, grand. It'll be uh, pretty helpful for how the rest of this segment unfolds. All right, so let's get into space, clear minds and hearts. I've decided to, before I read the summary, let me just give you my thoughts on the card layout. Um, I'm going to read the cards in pods of two, the actual tarot cards in pods of two. And it's interesting because until I had to, now, let me slow down and say this. I pulled the cards on the 22nd, the actual day that the new moon went into Gemini, because that was where the higher concentration of the moon's energy resided. But it took me up until now, up until this morning, to honestly focus on the cards and get the clear image of the message that was coming through. Now, mind you, I'm still novice in the language of tarot. So it takes me some time because I have to refer to guidebooks and then pull research and blend them all together to get to the place where my heart says, aha, now I get, oh, okay, this is what it's saying. So I've also, inside the transcript, laid out the cards at the end so that you too can take a look at the cards, how I have them situated, and the information that I pulled associated with each particular card. Now, with this, I use two different decks. I use the Angels and Ancestors. Hang on a minute, let me make sure so I say this correctly. The Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards by Cal Gray for the overlining, or should I say the silver lining energies. So the silver lining energies I dedicate specifically to the message that's coming through from Luna, specifically coming through the energies of the new moon in Gemini. The tarot cards will be directly in conjunction with Comfy Sofa Conversations, and I have already put the intention into the laying of the cards so that conversations may be infused, how can I say this, to manifest in a more natural and authentic ease. And I struggle with it because I don't necessarily figure to make the conversations easier, more so than qualitative. We are tapping into these moments where the conversation honestly has to matter. We will not be ping ponging back and forth with hastily words or words that mean nothing, those that will rob us of a true connection when it's time to communicate. Gemini is the symbology of true communications within camaraderie, like within those segments, if you will. Nothing else is coming to me right now, but within those segments of folks that honestly mean something to you. This is not a reading for small talk. This is not to be used or utilized. Well, you know what? You can use it for whatever you want to use it for. But let me tell you what my intention. Let me tell you what the intention is. It is the intention has been put forth to allow those that really need to have legendary types of conversations, legacy founding conversations, and how it is that some things can be processed on a mutual canvas. I know that was a lot of words, but I already told you. Yeah. I'm in the background dealing with energy that really just wants me to like go dancing in the rain somewhere. Let me reel it back. I digress. So the other deck that is in utilization during this session is the Paulina Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. I've done very well with adhering to the approach of the last shall be first. That began to ring into me about 90 or so days ago, um, prompted by the riddle of Strider. For anyone that comes across this and you are a Lord of the Rings buff, you a geek for J.R.R. Tolkien's work, then you will be familiar with the riddle of Strider. And it makes me want to read it. I gotta read it because it'll give enrichment to the context. So just bear with me for just a second while I pull this up. Okay, so Strider was one of the more behind the scenes heroes of the story. Remember, Frodo and Bilbo were, and Gollum and Sam Gamgee, they were the ones that were the actual heroes of the story because they were the bearers of the ring, right? Okay, but on the sidelines, a lot of that journey would not have taken place had they not had Gandalf and Strider and Legolas and Elrond and so if they didn't have these key major players that hosted them and kept them safe, that more than likely that journey wouldn't have never come to fruition. They would have been fucking killed. And I know I sound a bit dark because I'm giggling and Colonel, but it's the truth of the matter. Like, there are people that are in our lives that really post up for what it is that we're doing, and they understand the weight of certain feats so that we may get through our destined paths. And it flows quite nicely into the summary. Um, and I'll just preface with this. When I was doing the pre-write of the summary, I had no idea that it was going to come together like this. Um, and I'll say I threw the cards out and then I wrote the summary, still not even clicking that they would be at some point merged together for an overall message. So I'm quite excited to talk this through. But let me read the riddle of Strider. Uh, let me see. And it's amazing because there is one site that I never seem to bookmark that gives me just the poem. Let's see. Okay. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. When I first heard the poem, it went right over my head. It took me maybe about 9 months or so for something in the back of my mind nudge me to go and actually look it up. Because there's a difference when you hear someone say something versus you hear it and then you see it in print. It's something magical about being able to run your eyes across script for a better understanding. Magical stuff, absolutely magical stuff. It's not called spellbounding or spell casting for nothing. The physical psyche, we're talking about or should I say, the physicality of the psyche, meaning what the mind process as it sees it, solidifies whatever it's running its eyes across. And I know in the beginning of the segment, I really said we were pointing towards that which cannot be seen with the naked eye. But most often, what we deal with in non physical spaces has a lot to do with the information that has come across the physical spaces. We are products of our environment. We are the progressive nature of what we let into our eyes and through our ears, our physical eyes and ears. So even as I look at the poem right now, it seems like it enriches my, not even seem like, it does. On many occasions, it has already enriched my path of intellectual value, mainly because I have been known as this vagabond with no fixed trajectory. I'm all over the place. I don't know what to do with my life. I have not produced anything tangible that would prove to others that I'm actually onto something. So, reading this poem really stood as confirmation from the heavens that all that pulls at me and draws me to it, I am meant to go discover and cipher through so that I may decode and present. And I'm getting better at this. There was a time when I would fight against it, felt that I was unworthy somehow of being the one to bring these messages forth. I batted it down quite a bit. Like, nah, I'm not qualified. I don't know much. Just there was no fixed probability around if I was going to be even good at it. And why would that even matter? Whether you good or you suck. If you get the message through, mission accomplished, right? Nah. I, having a Virgo moon and a Virgo ascending, have this thing where it has to fit perfectly. And if it does not, I'm going to chip at it and chip at it and chip at it and chip at it. Quite obsessive, actually. Work in progress. I'm learning my shortcomings as well as we go through this thing. When in fact, something that I figure isn't really like all that good, I will get in a tender zone and ask someone else to take a look at it or, check it. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's miraculous. Like, come on, let's move on with this. So, all of that long windedness to say, we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to start at the base of the spread with the angels and oracles. And I'm going to move, uh, just for this section, I'm going to move backwards. So I'm going to read the four angels and ancestors, and then we're going to read the summary, and then we're going to get into the actual tarot. So the last card, the very last card at the base of the spread is spring, and it says, "See your seeds grow." Instantly, it tells me that whatever it is that we are working on, that honestly brings us to life, that honestly gives us the fuel to continue on into another day, or that which feeds our curiosity, is what needs to continue to be nurtured and incubated inside of our contemplations. We must not allow those things to drop due to worry or unclarity, uncertainty. And I will often bring it back to what's going on under the soil. We will plant a seed and more so than not become very impatient, at least I know I do, with what's going on under the soil and if in fact something's going to sprout up that's going to indicate to me that my seed has been sown. With this being the very first card of contemplation lets me know that even though something has not sprouted yet, whatever it is that you, as I've said, feel highly connected to, don't shift your attention. The energy that is bound to your attention and your wholesome intent is that which feeds whatever it is that's underneath the metaphorical soil, the non-physical soil. It feeds it so that it may continue to grow. So the next card is the Fire Guardian. Ignite your passions. One of the more heavily rotating concepts within the mystical scholarship realms is the stern provocations of identifying passions and only giving one's attention to that we've entered into a space where giving your time and attention to that which does not 1,000% resonate with your authenticity is whack. We are no longer doing that. We are no longer hanging around folks that, yeah, we just not doing none of that. We are not. And even if it's to the point where you can't physically be in the presence of someone that ignites you or someone that can co-sign to that which impassions you, that extending compassionate, loving thoughts towards the acquaintance is just as good as if you were at the dining room table with them brainstorming. Trust me when I say they can feel it. Trust me when I say, oh, you know what? And I say this often too. Don't trust me. Like, go. Ask your intuition to highlight such things, to bring forth the knowledge which will prove this to be so. And so, those acquaintances, those are the ones that me personally, I am looking forward to having actual physical, comfy sofa conversations with. But in the meantime, preparation is key. So we are tapping into that which ignites the passions. The next card is the Magic Guardian. Unlock the magic within. Now, of course, this is going to mean something different to each and every individual, but to chase that, to pursue that, to court that, so that it may begin to take root within your psyche, within your intuitive spaces. That when you do be endowed with the opportunities to connect, that the non physical beings within you will recognize the non physical beings within them, and all sorts of things that are meant to be will just click in place. And the last card of the Angels and Ancestors, which we are utilizing as the base, the foundation of the spread, is Mountains. Stand your ground. And let me just note real quick, inside of the transcript, it is not situated the way that I just read it because it was already in the magical flow of the session when I decided to read just the foundational part of it, honoring the last shall be first. But it's there. You can take a look at it. Um, what else I'm gonna say before I start reading these summaries? Oh, also, yes, let me say this because I probably will forget before it's all said and done with. Um, Slots for readings and oracle sessions, as well as remote facilitations for comfy sofa conversations. Slots are now open. At the bottom of the transcript is information about such offerings, as well as how to get in touch with me to get those booked. So you are very welcome to get in contact to get such things set up and initiated. All right, so let's get into the summary. Today, the moon's newness enter into the sign of Gemini. So what does this mean exactly? Well, in honesty, I'm not completely sure yet. Mainly because my scholarship within this realm is still quite novice. But guess what? I'll be riding the wire into guided discoveries until I am sure. In the meantime, I've decided to host a comfy sofa conversations cardboard summit to help us better absorb whatever arrives so that we may further explore. And I've decided to invite you to join me. So get your journals, pencils, and highlighters ready. Over the past several weeks, I've been intuitively nudged to visit with the story, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I wasn't sure at first about the connection to this storyline in conjunction with the current energies of this new moon in Gemini. But then I accepted my curiosity's invitation to gain a deeper view. Because surely, in order for one to translate curious cases, it must walk through curiosity's portals. And no, these particular portals don't always kill the cat. It's all about intentions. Besides, my spirit animal is a black pixie panther. It's destined to travel such. It's destined for travels such as this. Here's what I've discovered. The concept of backward time travel is such a marvel to me. In addition to sitting sitting in several metaphysical lectures that has referred to the Capricorn human life experience as being a similar journey to that of Benjamin Button. And when one is aware of such, various points of views that would otherwise be hidden come to life. What's particularly soothing about What's particularly soothing to me with this story is how the parent-child dynamics and household relationships are delicately depicted. Witnessing how this film captures the instances of mending and rekindling relationships that were previously distant and or broken speaks to my soul, likened to an eager scholar sitting in an AP honors class. The most striking of the storyline is the nuanced powers of bedtime stories and how it's utilized to strengthen the bonds between mother-daughter and grandmother-granddaughter. To have someone regularly read to you aloud whilst your mind explores the non-physical realms happens to be therapeutic beyond epic proportions. As the Capricorn enters into the third dimension, It enters as an old soul with an internal clock that ticks counterclockwise upon its biological aging of physical structures. The shadow side of this human experience, as with all human experiences, no one but Queenie, Benjamin's matriarchal caregiver, held the awareness to this uncanny truth of Benjamin's outer being having the look of an old man, yet housing the consciousness of an 8-year-old. And throughout this happenstance, she was never urged to deject him from her heart as he transformed, slowly but surely, into this vibrant young man with the consciousness of an elder. It's often rather amazing at how one's inner being can be in total contrast to its outer being. Also, what's equally intriguing, plus super amazing, is how love still finds its way upon its destined paths. Whenever, wherever, whatever. Which has often reminded me that we, as humans, must allow nature to take its course from the non physical into the physical. Each time I view this highly unique narrative, I tend to hone into a slightly enhanced point of view. Currently, the love of those that will feed, shelter, and keep you safe, even when on the surface you appear to be this ugly, wretched thing, yet very much in need of caring for, is also a course of nature that not many are willing to acknowledge. But to our fortune, we are being given flawless opportunity to dive deeper, beyond the sea levels, beyond the SEE levels. Loving the conditions away. Loving the conditions away is now our active call of duty, and with each passing day, it's increasing its frequencies. The golden fleece-like keynote that is forever tugging on my heartstrings is when Queenie, played by Taraji P. Henson, says, "You never know what's coming for you." And this wasn't said in malice, quite the contrary. Queenie was a woman of elevated faith and foresight. She knew that she knew that blessings and fortune can arrive in all sorts of shapes and sizes. She also knew that the shock factor of said arrivals could very well be packaged inside what looks like a burden, but would ultimately serve in earnest as the determining factor upon who such blessings would be bestowed upon. Below the SEE level is truly where our fortune dwells. In the end, Mr. Benjamin Button channeled plenty fortunes towards those that cared for him when he was unable and or unavailable to care for himself. We've entered into an era of suspended judgment. What we figure to be true is being what we're figuring to be true is being intimately challenged. This is also true regarding the influences of energy regarding our complementary acquaintances, situations, and circumstances. Okay, so here's the deal. The monthly cycles of the moon are a very big deal, especially if you are a host of feminine reproductive organs. Inside the 8 key stages of the moon's evolution. Huh, I just want to put all kinds of words in here, and I wrote this. Okay, slow down. All right, here we go. Inside the 8 key stages of the moon's evolution around the Earth, it's good to note that even the moon has a light side and a shadow side. for which heavily influences the human being during these respective stages. Gemini is one of the two ruled by the planet Mercury. With this, I'm personally being sternly influenced by my moon sign placement being in Virgo, which is the sister sign to Gemini, also ruled by Mercury. Mercury, being the planet of communication and learning styles through self expression, are being tenderly highlighted. The new moon shall always arrive with a tenderly transparent message for the human aware of its energy, gift, and presence. Did I not finish that sentence? I don't think so. Shall always arrive with a tenderly transparent message. Oh, yes, it did. For the human aware of its energy, gift, and presence. The moon, better known as Luna, speaks strongly through intentional solitude and energies in motion, emotions. It's often noted that the entrance of new moon is a supreme time to set intentions for futuristic launches, and the full moon is a time of culmination, reaching the high degree and fruition. So, regardless of one's active awareness involving the moon's influences, its energetic waxing, illumination, and or waning, its shadowy side, is directly connected to the human's infrastructure. It's better to know you. And I put that in quotes, quote unquote, it's better to know you. Being introduced to one's destined newness and or lifelong lessons through the telling of another's life story is and has always been amongst the greatest treasures of this human experience. And in my opinion, it's the priceless component and often the missing link to our non physical inheritances from our beloved ones, especially through the mediums of journals, diaries, love letters, postcards, and even the infamous message in a bottle, which has the power to honestly move us forward and adequately document our existence, sentiments, special occasions, celebrations, compliments with an E, and compliments as in accompanied accommodations. As with all new moons, there's, as with all new moons, ah, as with all new moons, they arrive with something to say. With this, I've pulled a series of tarot cards to drop some clues associated with intentional links toward a personal query, seeking respectful reciprocity whilst that was one of my younglings ringing the phone. I swear that the thing just like it will shred up your concentration. Okay, as with all new moons, they arrive with something to say. With this, I've pulled a series of tarot cards to drop some clues associated with my intentional links toward a pro personal query, which is seeking respectful reciprocity whilst identifying the sacred alchemical processes of interior to exterior happenstances. Furthermore, it'll be for the sake of authentic communications and self expression, which is ultimately the provocateur for super comfy sofa conversations. And of course, I know a lot of people don't like hashtags, but I still did it. Hashtag the best thing I never knew I needed. And so that is the summary. Um, And so I think right now I'm going to hit pause to see what my youngling is calling about, and then we're going to get into talking through the layout of the cards. So please stand by for a moment. We are back. We have finally resumed. Congress is back in session, literally and figuratively. So, welcome to part two. If you have lasted this long, I say congratulations. I say hail to your Tibet nose. Here's what is going to happen. And I pause because so much has happened in the last 48 hours that I'm not sure where to begin. And it's rather magical how this session has taken place and all of the emotionality that I have ebbed and flowed in since I recorded part one. If it does nothing else, it is a timestamp on my tender evolution. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to recap. So, for the sake of continuity, so we're going to recap. I have more notes that spun off, and so we're going to tap into those, and then we're going to talk through the card spread. So let's bring it back to memory with the last shall be first. And I just thought of something. As you're listening to it, if you listen to this all in one session, then continuity is solidified anyway. I am the one that experiences the time lapse. Talk about curious cases, right? Okay. All right, here we go. So the last shall be first. So the last four cards of the spread, going in counterclockwise fashion, is Spring, See Your Seeds Grow, Fire Guardian, Ignite Your Passions, Magic Guardian, Unlock the Magic Within, and Mountains, Stand Your Ground. With that said, in particular, we're going to talk about the context around how I best utilize magic. And not just as a word, not just as vocabulary and comprehension, but actual practical activity where even the slightest nuance of magic comes forth. One will be sensitive enough to be aware, to identify that that's what's actually happening. One of my most intriguing moments of magic is when I will not necessarily be in hard contemplation, but someone will pop up in my mind, and before the day is out, I will have made physical contact with them. And it's magical to me because I think about those that I am in loving acquaintance with, not romantic. And I'm glad that that has popped up because this morning, right at the brink of consciousness, I flowed into what felt like a conversation within my spirit realm, within my non physical realms, that I wasn't particularly, not particularly, that I was not directly part of, meaning I was not contributing any forward thought to the to the conversation. It felt like the conversation was going on while I was sleeping, but I caught the tail end of a deliberation between the vast levels of love and how most contemporary concepts try to use love and romance interchangeably when love is as neutral as water, and then the intent or by uh, engaging in it, engaging in it, it can be hot, lukewarm, or cold, freezing, ice. So the spectrum of how water can show up, and it can be soothing and calm, or vital and volatile, still water all the same. And like anything else within this physical realm, there is a multiplicity to existence. And I've said it before, the various species of trees, butterflies, bees, even volcanoes, like the characteristics of its functions are pretty much the same. But those that study volcanoes know that there are no two volcanoes alike. Those that study butterflies, they begin to become in tune with the subtle thoughts and the nuances of the particulars in whatever the existence of whatever it is that they're studying, but only to study it, only to engage it and intellectually court it, will you be able to decipher the magical essence of something. No different with situations and circumstances, no different with acquaintances and camaraderie, interaction, whether with the beings, the non beings of self, or the outer limits of beings within physicality. And as a link, a human being, as a link to the inner and outer realms of existence, you honestly is a coin with two sides. You have an outer side and an inner side, two separate worlds you are connected to. Because of the way most of our societies are set up, we are most often directed to only contemplate that which is on the outside of us, leading us to believe that most of our magic has to happen in conjunction with other physical beings, only inside of physical spaces. And because even with the term, magic has been used to the point where it has muddied up the comprehension around such phenomenon, as well as just the interpretation of it. Magic means something totally different to me than someone who has had a very posh, a very poshy life. And for those that are not familiar with the term posh, it can be interchangeable with bougie, privileged, fluffy, fancy and fluffy. Those that were raised in a whole bunch of Vanity Fair, when they contemplate the term magic or have to reflect of, ref, have to be in reflection to determine context around magic, it's totally different. My magic was a little bit more harder to find, which in this day and age makes it also more valuable to me. I actually seek, even if it's in nuance, the magical connectors of my day to day. Most of that is found in metaphor because I am a word wizard. I am a lover of words. I dance with vocabulary. I court, a steady court, as if it was the grandest divine counterpart I've ever experienced. I court my comprehension of vocabulary. I am very in tune to what words mean to me as well as what they mean to someone else. We honestly can be speaking the same word and it means two different things as we're sitting side by side. So, what often amazes me is that there's very little engagement around making sure that when we are in conversation with one another, that what I say, you understand it as I mean it. And we don't circle back to say, okay, just so I'm clear, just so I'm hearing you correctly, just so, and my daughter has been teaching me this quite a bit. It has been amazing to watch her. My oldest son too. My youngest son is getting it, but he's still in his teenage years. So I think at the brink of his early adulthood, it's going to it's going to snap into place for him. But it's amazing to be in conversation with these two very young but leader like personalities and have them explain things to me. And the their choice of words and how their comprehensions are maturing seems like with every time we speak, there is I can't find a word for it, but there's a vitality to their growth of how they are paying attention to how life is unfolding for them. And so I say all of that to try to blend or try to attempting to lay just a soft foundation around what I may mean when I say magical instances, especially in a world is that seems to be deficient in such elaborate power. So what I found is when I am in the mode to wanting to unlock magical essence within myself, I will usually go and tap into story. And the way it feels nowadays, story still is not being approached as the magical, omniversal apparatus that it is. Those, and I'm pretty sure hold, hang on. Okay, so the other day I had this incredible urge to go and tap into um, interviews with Jay-Z and Beyonce, not as a couple, individually as their own atomic artisans. And it amazes me how now they are maturing into these frequencies where they have content and context to speak on firsthand. They have enough firsthand experiences to be able to add to conversations in ways that honestly make me say, aha, all right, I can get with that. Do I agree 100%? Let me tell you something. I don't agree with nobody, including myself, 100% all the time. So when I do get up in these spaces where I'm recording and putting it into the public domain, I have to stay mindful to disclose certain things on a regular basis because and when I say we, I mean human beings across the board, we are creatures of assumption. And I don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. Most of the time, does it make asses out of us? Yes. But I truly believe that has a lot to do with conditioning. I think that if we were in situations where our mind, body, and souls were freely able to align as it naturally ought to, that our assumptions would be a little bit more on point. But because of the fuckery that's been infused in the way we've matured, that's what I feel makes the assumptions off and throw us into asinine interpretations of what our mind and hearts are processing. So I was getting ready to go on a tangent. I was about to go right down that rabbit hole. Okay, so let's bring it back. All right. The sacred symbiotic relationships between the tortoise, the elephant, the butterfly, and the feather. These four symbols have meant a great deal to my maturity over the last 5 years. Mainly the feather, which started during my days when I was obsessed with Sister Myra Moss's lecture series. Her lecture series is because she was the only black woman that I had ever seen that could hold down a 2 hour lecture talking about the fundamentals of astrology, and not in social terms, in pure academic terms. Many of her lectures I've watched multiple times, and each time I've sat with it, have taken a new set of notes where it would baffle me like, how did I miss that? I'm pretty sure I was paying attention. How did I miss it? But what I'm finding out is that when you are in tune with mastering something, each time you sit with a particular content or reflect upon or recall certain situations and circumstances that will help gather your context, your comprehension of context, something magical happens, as if it's placing certain puzzle pieces according to your maturity. So it's like we often say, if I knew back then what I knew now, what I know now. The magical essence of that is divine timing. Some things you just were not meant to know prior to you knowing it. But if you never step out of the agreement that you will forever be the scholar and the teacher, then it holds space for certain um, acknowledgments as well as wisdoms to be stitched together quite eloquently. And then you go back and you reflect upon the entire comprehension and you realize, like, by golly, I am actually on to something. And so the feather, as a writer, it has held me down because Sister Myra Moss would say, especially in relationship to the Capricorn who is on the journey to authentically express itself, who is quite invested in not just saying something for the sake of saying something, as well as when the moment shows up for you to honestly say how you feel, that you don't disregard or bypass that moment because you may never get it again. And like with any puzzle piece, it belongs in the situation it belongs in. Now, my shortcoming around just that piece that I just spoke about was not about me not speaking, but how I was speaking. And The hard lessons came in because for the most part of my existence, it was full of anger and dismay and unclarity, uncertainty around my existence. So within my core being, right bubbling up in the solar plexus area, was these kinks of confusion about my outer world and how they, in fact, linked into my inner world. For so long, it often felt like the divine was playing this harsh, unforgivable joke on me. Like, what the fuck? If somebody do not tap into my inner ear right now and let me know what the fuck I'm doing in this realm, yeah, it's not gonna be good. I'm gonna be a cranky ass probably the rest of my life if some clarity don't come through. And so the feather always reminded me, how about this? Not even really reminded me, it kept me on task when I wanted to veer off in some angry tantrum about what I could not readily explain. And so the feather is the symbol of the ascended rider, also representing vibrant opportunities, harmony, balance, tranquility, courage, protection, hope, and dreams. And all of this can be found with a simple search online if you want to dig a little deeper, if in fact the feather resonates with you as well. Especially to my aspiring writers, those that seek to master a certain level of communication in its personal as well as its professional life, I urge you to get you a feather. Having a feather in your cap, it really is not cliche-ish. The feather as a symbol, when it's in constant mindfulness with the human, magic happens. It's almost like the feather is the magnet to your vocabulary and how you will comprehend and utilize certain vocabularies in conjunction with how you feel and what you think. Now the butterfly, okay, how about this? The butterfly and the elephant ran simultaneously in the back of my mind. Uh, the elephant on a more personal level because it was part of my mom's spiritual totem. I, when she was living, her entire house, the living room, was full of not just elephant figurines, but images of elephants and print fabrics of elephants and jewelry of elephants. Um, the elephant as a matter of fact, the elephant and the tortoise that was featured in the beginning of this session, the photo of it, you know what? As a matter of fact, all three of them. Wow. Okay. So all three pieces belonged to my mom at some point. Now, the butterfly was given to me through her, but the elephant and the tortoise were actually pieces that she would brooch on her outfits during certain times, all depending on how she was feeling. So the elephant was a symbol that I is a symbol that I'm sure will always be attached to my matriarchal honorariums when I think of my mom. And I think this is with all of my siblings because many years on certain occasions, my siblings would bring all sorts of elephant ensembles and emblems as gifts. And they wouldn't be like these regular styles of elephants. Some of the figurines my siblings would get while they were on travel, and many of them are well traveled. So they would bring these highly unique figurines, and at some point I would just marvel at them with the vastness of creativity around the elephant. Still had not tapped into the spiritual value, the figurative value surrounding the elephant. What's fortunate about it is I did eventually tap into wanting to learn more about it. Um, but it wasn't until after my mom transcended. Um, in attempts to keep her close, associating her essence with that of the elephant, is when I honestly began to see the elephant and appreciate it in a different light, all magical. So the elephant is a symbol of good luck, power, success, loyalty, companionship, and unity. And my mom's sun sign is Sagittarius. And so when I think about Jupiter, I really do think about a lot of the characteristics that surround the elephant, which also confirms to me in many of my contemplations that my mom's attachment to the elephant, figuratively and literally, had a lot to do with her authentic expression. Now, the butterfly, the symbology around the butterfly for me personally is bittersweet. Uh, Honestly, I don't particularly like the cocoon phases, but the evolution of the caterpillar, the the journey uh, of morphism is probably the overall, the main idea, if you will, of how I contemplate where I am right now. Yeah, if I could give, um, if I could offer up one symbol to depict maybe my last 7 years, I would wholeheartedly have to say it's that of the butterfly. Now, the tortoise, probably the last 3 weeks, very new, very new symbol added to the portfolio of what I like to call my profile of qualitative psychology. But more so, it's this term that I've been dancing around with, that's the qualitative side astrology, DIY, do it yourself. Most often, when we see the term DIY, when we are speaking about do it yourself, it's about physical activity. But I'm seeing it more and more be referenced with regards to self help and alternative therapy. To serve as one's own coach also falls within the spectrum of do it yourself because you can. And the tortoise, in my opinion, proves that. One just has to be very open to accepting that wisdom and knowledge will arrive in very unique uncomparable ways. If you begin to compare how you receive and process things with any other physical human being within this realm, you will lose. And what you're going to lose is sight of your actual maturing manifesto. You are not like anyone else, which means you probably won't be intimately processing like anyone else. And your outer situations can very well be totally different than your inner situations. Your inner being may not always be reflective of your outer being. Your outer being can be in situations and circumstances that do not always ring true to your inner being. Your inner being can be multiple, and that's okay. I still remain baffled at how my society is set up that will tell an individual that they may not have multiple beings that speak to them in non physical spaces. And if in fact this happens, that they are somewhat destined to be a resident of the loony bin and or need to be on some type of cocktail of man-made synthetics to alter this power versus putting them in safe spaces to say that you hear these voices because you are a medium. And when these non-physical beings see that you have the ability to communicate with them, it's like a beacon of light in the darkness, which will attract them like a moth to a flame. There is no secret that generationally the agenda has been to keep such scholarship away from those that would probably more than likely be this type of medium, because if you can speak and communicate to non beings, knowing that they are omnipresent, meaning they can float in and out of matter, time, and space with ease, then some news can be brought to you that could truly evolutionize or dismantle without any type of weapons necessary. And so the less folks that are with healthy, welcoming understanding that it is not to be spooked out when you hear voices that are not necessarily yours, and that the immediate response to shut them up might not necessarily be the most wisest thing. And I honestly think that these wizard like mentalities, personalities, and I am being facetious when I say that. I'm not talking about like the wizards in at Hogwarts with Harry Potter. I'm not speaking about those. I'm talking about those that want to dominate the mentality of many so that it may prop up the bouginess of the few. I'm talking about those. I'm talking about the Alice in Wonderland type of Jabberwocky type fuckery. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna stop dismissing my moments to go tumbling down the rabbit hole. I'm going I'm going to say yes to all of it and take you right with me one of these days, I promise. But like the Wizard of Oz type wizard, where nothing is as it seems, and as long as we believe that it's this sky daddy, this infamous, untouchable, cannot be approached type of entity that is calling all of the shots, that today it's green and tomorrow it's gold and yeah, next week it'll be red, and we follow suit with that without ever questioning how we honestly feel and what we truly think about it. No critical thinking. You know, when you tap into the wizard mentalities, when you allow the wizard mentalities to dictate how you maneuver, then most often no critical thinking is required. No sense of respectful scrutiny is required. And that's what makes mainstream and conventional means so fucking lopsided. So the tortoise arrived to make me sensitively aware of the symbol of wisdom and knowledge. Oftentimes is interpreted as the personification of the earth, immortality, and fertility. And over the last 48 hours, contemplating these notes as well as the layout of the cards, spoke or revealed angles to me that was not readily available when I recorded the first part of this session. Magical. So, our word for the month. Remember, we're talking about the new moon in Gemini. We are talking about unique communications. We're talking about specialty communications that is situated mainly for what's precisely going on right here, right now. We're talking about getting into more comfortable grooves with expressing how one truly feels without abandoning what it thinks. With all of that, the word of the month, which means the word that I am suggesting you contemplate with mastery degree. That means go become familiar with it. Put it inside your journal, write it on a flashcard, post it above your bedpost, in the bathroom, at your mirror, wherever you know that you are going to be constantly glancing or scanning within your physical spaces. Involve this word, involve the meaning of this word, and build context around this word. So the word is called Ouroboros. And trust me, it's been a few months that I have been playing around, just flirting with the word. Um, and I still have to hesitate and get my mind situated to say it. It's still rather unfamiliar, but it is like a new beau that comes to call or visit to come check up on me honestly because he's intrigued to want to know how I'm doing. And so the word means self reflexive. And I have situated um, at the very end of this session the correct spelling as well as the meaning surrounding Ouroboros. And so to be self-reflexive, reflexive, to be self-reflexive means to frequently or regularly examine how one feels, its practices, its judgments, its impressions, like it does inventory with how one looks and perceives the world. Quite an enchanting word, seeing as that a lot of the major players um, with regards to non physical influence is courting us into a different type of understanding, especially around how we feel and what we think. That which we thought was true is now being put up for reevaluation. There is a unique transformation that is taking place. So, with that said, I would not be me if I did not bring some type of astrological angle into the mix, that which I like to call astro style. And so, here's the question that has been posed to me: what role would you play in your cosmic tribe? Cosmic tribe meaning inside your non physical spaces. If there were this euphoric, metaphoric tribe that your non physical being belongs to, what role would you play inside of that tribe? I approached this question like it was part of a universal riddle to the human being. And so, like with most contemplations involving my existence, I always start with my three main zodiacs. That's my sun sign, my moon sign, my rising sign. So, Capricorn sun, Virgo moon, Virgo, and I say arising. For some reason, that's the word yeah, so we're going to roll with it. And so I'll direct your attention back to how I view it as a tricycle. My sun sign is the front wheel. My moon sign, my rising sign are the two back wheels. So what pushes me forward figuratively is my Capricorn and my double Virgo. Since Mercury is where it is, it sometimes right now feels I am in double essence to communicate certain things that are coming across my radar. So, Capricorn is a cardinal sign. It is part of the cardinals of the zodiac. Virgo is what's considered a mutable sign of the zodiacs. And so my cardinal essence is what leads me and empowers me to be able to sift through the amount of content and context that I do. And this is in high frequency and has been for a good little while now. My obsessive nature to want to comprehend and then process and communicate is the double Virgo in me. Inside the zodiacs, the cardinal signs are considered the starters, the promoters, the initiators. The mutables are considered the finishers. They are those. Okay, so let me see. And I remember reading a really good article that let me see if I can try to relocate it, and maybe I'll be able to put it in the show notes so that you may have solid reference around what it is that I'm speaking about. So, it's often said that inside of a tribe that you can't truly just rely on the hunters and gatherers. And that's not to say that they aren't very important, but there are also a lot of other positions that are played within the tribe that makes it an elite tribe. If we were to translate that into societal terms, then it would mean that we would do good to not just be honoring the money makers. And trust me when I say, every single human on the, not gonna say on the planet, within this realm is not deemed to generate income. But because we are in this ultra corporate industrious mentality, we only honor those that are able to generate income independently without ever having to ask anyone for anything or never needing support of another. Yeah, that type of fuckery. Totally dismissing all of the other intricate details that go in to make it be the greatness that it honestly could, can, will be. And so, an initiator, a promoter, a starter will never be a finisher. That's why there are those that are really good at closing. And I will set my entire creative ingenuity on this, that if you find someone who's a good closer, like honestly can go in there and seal the deal without effort, more than likely they are a Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. If they are these, now that's not to say all Geminis, Virgos, Sagittarius, and Pisces are wonderful closers, but I will say the elite ones, the creme de la creme, will more than likely either be this as their sun or have very strong placements of these particular energies, just as well as the fixers, the doers, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. They are the ones within the middle part of the process. They are the ones that are the activity driven, the proactives. Okay, so back to the article. It pretty much gave the image of, if you have at least one or two of each on your team, that you pretty much have a winning team. I say you pretty much have a winning tribe when you are able to identify within these categories and place folks to where they are naturally situated. So your cardinals, your Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, those are the ones that will honestly take the idea and present it, will promote it, will lay it out on the table and say, though that they are the seed people. They are the ones that will plant the seeds. Then you have your fixers, who are your doers, your Taurus, your Leo, your Scorpio, your Aquariuses, who honestly take the seed, nurture it, incubate it, make sure that it is always engaged to funnel the process into the hands of the mutables, the Geminis, the Virgos, the Sagittariuses, and the Pisces. Because honestly, burnout comes when individuals perceive the battle to be something that they have to cover. And I just say battle, but whatever's coming into fruition, whatever's manifesting, that they have to be responsible for the rooter to the tutor. That there isn't a natural flow of compartmentalization that actually works towards the natural growth and sustainability of something. And so it's not by surprise that we don't lead with this thing called astro style. Like, we do not construct or situate our teams or our tribes or even our mentality around such with regards to how folks can be placed. Like, I don't even really hear folks within their zodiac sign to say, well, I'm a cardinal, so I will be your promoter. I best serve as your promoter. Or I am a mutable of the group, so I'm best placed at the end of the situation where I'll go in and close it up. As well as those that will situate themselves in the middle, that says, I am good with taking it from the cardinal and doing what needs to be done and then handing it over to the mutable. And identifying folks that way. So many people are in situations that are working against them and then become very bummed out or have folks misjudge the essence of their strength just because placement is wrong or the identification of proper placement is off. So, with all of that said, we are going to move into the final part of this session, which we will talk out the layout of the cards. And so, let me pull my notes up real quick. Now, as I mentioned in part one, I situated the cards in pairs of two, mainly so that I could be able to process them with my novice mind. Let's see here. Which made the translation easier, flow a lot better. Okay, so here's the deal. Let's see. And while I am in the midst of okay, here we are, getting myself situated, I invite you to get your hands on the transcript, which is now, right now. I posted it yesterday. It is on Scribe, and the link will be in the show notes for your convenience. Okay, so the card layout, the first two is the Five of Swords and the King of Wands. And let me say, before we even dive into this, that the cards are not situated to give you a succession of what most tarot cards attempt to do, and that's provide you with divination. So, and I think I mentioned this in part one. I do not particularly lay cards out to try to figure out what's going to happen next. So you may never hear in any of my sessions me telling you that someone is going to call you or that someone is missing you or and so like the human interaction part of tarot, and I wonder if that honestly has a lot to do with the fact that I'm still new to this and I am walking the journey of self scholarship as well, and so maybe that has something to do with it. Either way, nonetheless, much of What I'll be reading will tap into one or two things, which will either be the category of Temet Nos, going to the aid of one knowing thyself, or the Sankofa experience, serving as a provocateur for us to tap into what was so that we may go back and get it. Sankofa is a tribal term which actually is an ancient African tribal term that of the Twi people that suggests that you go back in time to go get that which was lost. Many times I associate this with the emotionality of my people. Inside of cultural denominations, especially if we talk about the historical value of creed and classification around cultural denomination, most often our ability to love freely without contempt is what was taken away, along with the arrested development around scholarship, around mainstream conventional scholarship. With that was taken away the power to narrate, the power to tell one's own story, the power to give an adequate account of what has just happened or what has happened and its reflection upon that. So, those are the two main categories that I will be interpreting from. So, the first two is the Five of Swords, which means self destruction, paranoia, malice, dishonor, and the King of Wands, which is charismatic, creative, financial planning, leadership abilities. These terms to describe the card is to help identify the energy that surrounds the card when it shows up. And so easily so. The first two cards out is easily can be easily interpreted that we are in a mystical, magical timeline. And that even so, self destruction, paranoia, malice, dishonor exist. Also, that exists is the essence of charisma, creativity. There's still room for um, beneficial financial planning, and leadership abilities is there for the taking. The next set of two links up nicely with the first set of two, which is the Queen of Cups, insightfulness, psychic and intuitive insight, compassionate honesty, patient imagination, with the Eight of Cups, which is stagnation before the turning point, discovery of inner truth. And I'll even go ahead on and attach the third set before I give a little bit of elaboration. So the third set of two is the Sun, which is vitality, enlightenment, new inventions, satisfaction, accomplishment, with the Seven of Cups, illusion, too many choices, conflicting desires. To each their own, okay? Most often in the realm of tarot, the disclosure is if it resonate, appreciate, which means all of it won't be your story. All of it will not resonate, but there are some where it will. If it does, chime into that, tap into that, tune into that, So if you know that as your days are unfolding and you find yourself inside of a phase of stagnation, remember nothing, anything, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, lasts forever. There are seasons and cycles to this. And I actually have to tell myself this now on a regular moment to moment basis because it is real out here in the physical and non physical spaces. And any and everything is a go. So, in a course of a day, I can feel insightful and psychic and intuitive, as well as I can feel paranoid and self destructive. But as long as I stay tuned into understanding that a lot of this is in the curve of a turning point and that my discoveries, my true discoveries, is adjacent to my inner truth, then I cannot have a I can become immune to the onslaught of having too many choices and conflicting desires. And as long as I stand firm and deeply rooted in that, then at some point, even if it's not to the overwhelming degree that I am searching and seeking and striving for, there are small points and small hues of vitality and new inventions that I ultimately can become satisfied with that can wholeheartedly be linked into what's viable and legitimately considered an accomplishment. Now, the fourth set of two, which I was actually happy to see because I interpret the devil card differently than most. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this in part one, but I know going forward, I'm going to find the opportunities to speak more on how uh, on how I interpret as well as the different lenses that I view the devil card in, just because I've asked for those opportunities. I've put the intention into my non physical spaces to increase my opportunities to speak on this because it feels like it's a bit insufficient when the devil card comes up. And most often than not, it's depicted as the devil within Christianity versus it just being of the root chakra nature of it being the below the SEE, below the sea level by which the average can pick up on. That's the deeply rooted, shadowy, but and most often primal chaotic, but still just as important, just as enriching as the higher echelons of energy. Yes, it's the more weighty, but no less delightful in its existence. And so the devil card, when it shows up to me, is in fact about addictions. But it could be addictions to all sorts of things. We can become addicted to attention. We can become addicted to greed, which we see most often, but also we can become addicted to procrastination. And we can become obsessive in our ego based entanglements. With all of that, when the devil card shows up in a reading for me, it's an indication that shadow work is upon me. Shadow work is very much needed. And to be spooked out by one's own need to view its shadows, I am hoping becomes dismantled. I'm hoping that the willingness to face one's more darker essence is it loses its pull of being taboo, or it loses its pull inside of the perceptions of being evil. And even if it can't get out of its reputation of being evil, that somehow it begins to be deemed a necessary evil versus an unnecessary evil, that our shadow side is part of us and it ought to be given the same time and attention as our light, more jolly, more enthusiastic sides. So, taper with that in the fourth set of two is the Three of Wands, which is envisioning the future, exploring the unknown, providing foresight, and expanding one's sense of self, which could all very easily play into the examination of one's shadowy side. And I get it. If we are amongst those considered wretched or can't get right or whatever else debilitating adjective that folks want to attach to maybe a bad decision or a wrong call or sorrow or shame or guilt, we have those things. As a human, we will put on those hues of shame and whatever else energy that might not be very likable, but still necessary to balance out the wholeness of a being. Expanding one's sense of self, you will tap into the chaotic, primordial form of darkness because that's where it all ensues, that's where it initiates. So it's not far fetched for one to somehow realize that I am a promoter of the shadow realm. Do I think you should stay there and camp out like get timeshare? No. Well, timeshare maybe, because the more and more we begin to collectively unpack conversations around darkness and the shadowy sides, the more uh, constructive comfort will spring forth, and the judgments will shift inevitably because we will no longer be suiting folks with more darker sides as this wretched ass thing that needs to be shunned and pushed to the side because we will become masters at dealing, masters at dealing with the ultimate dwelling. Like it dwells within every single human being. You're not going to get light without the dark. You just not get right to it. There is not one being on the planet that walks its life in all lightness. But we have been groomed to believe that if we lean way over into the light, that somehow our darkness is going to dissolve and we'll have to not deal with it. So I suggest that we slowly but surely become one with all that is us, and that the mastering of darkness as well as the mastering of light ensues. I tell you what, if in fact that becomes a natural practice of existence, your critical thinking mechanisms will strengthen just because, and there'll be a slow decline of being bamboozled. And I promise you, I don't say that with malice, but the fact still remains. There are more of us that are intertwined in bamboozlement than not. So the next set of two is the High Priestess, which is surrounding mystery, decoding, seeker of intuitive knowledge and wisdom, and the instinctive learner. Adjacent with Temperance, which is healing, renewal, innovation, combinations of balance and harmony and alchemy. And so all that I just mentioned is honestly the processing of alchemy. Definitely sacred alchemy, which is the alchemy that transmute in non-physical spaces. That's the wonder and the magic that I was attempting to describe at the top of this second half. All that you can't touch, the intangibles. So the next set of two is the Two of Wands, which is determination, originality, initiative, seizing, boldness, daring creativity, which means creativity that dares, that provokes, that cataclysmic type of creativity. Which when this card came out, I hollered. I always holler when the Ten of Pentacles or the Ten of Cups come out. And when they ever come out in the same spread, yeah, I'm ecstatic. Okay, so the Two of Wands is adjacent to the Ten of Pentacles, which is fulfillment, good fortune, and flourishing ventures. These two cards together tell me that if we would just minimize distractions and focus and become determined on those our modes of originality and how we may seize our boldness and begin creating things that provoke either further deliberation, deeper contemplation, whatever it is that is propelling us to seek below the sea level, we ought to give it its just due. Why? Because in doing so, I honestly believe funnels of fulfillment and good fortune and flourishing ventures, yeah, it's the inevitable. It shall be the inevitable. So, closing up the card spread, which I will be so bold to say, hang on with my notes, I would be so bold to say that the closing of this spread is dedicated to the closers, the finishers, the mutables of the zodiacs. So if you are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, the last two is for you. And that is the Six of Wands, which is about victory, rising up, arrival of great news, success through consistent life, work, study, style, passion, purpose, projects. And the last card out is the Empress, which is emotional gardening, humble mothering, fertility, sensuality, beauty, comfort, pleasures. And since I just got the notion to dedicate the last set of cards to the mutables, I would say the first set of cards is to the cardinals, which means we, as the Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorns, honestly ought to be focusing on our moments when we do feel the most self destructive, paranoia, wanting to be the supplier of malice and dishonor. And let's not act like it doesn't happen because cardinals can be some bad mama jammas. The shadow side of an Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, baby, yeah, let's be honest. Like Brother Bobby say, yeah, let's be real with this shit. Let's not fuck around. Now, I can't really gauge where the middle of the um, layout is. So I'll say in between the Sun, the Seven of Cups, the Devil, and the Three of Wands. And that would be for the fixers, the middle segment of the zodiac, the Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. That just may be your portion is highlighted to say that vitality and enlightenment is yours to have. Like it's yours to have and to hold. But don't become obsessive with it or greedy with it. That it is for providing you foresight as well as being your aid when you begin to explore the unknown. Why? Because you are honestly those that will take it from the cardinal, incubate it, mature it, and hand it off to the mutables. And so, with all of that said, we are coming to a close, my loves. We have made it through. And so, here's the message for the end of the tunnel. Here is the message. Here is your takeaway. Here's your parting gift. You see how all of that ran in like that? I'm telling you, Mercury is riding my back, but I'm okay. I don't mind Mercury being where it is. Not even to talk about my Saturn in Gemini. So yeah, communications is really like it's having its way with me, even within its ebbing and flowing. Okay, so here's the parting gift. Here's the message. And remember, the word for the month is oroboric, from the root oroborus, which means that which eats its own tail. In order, and it's trust me when I say it's more evolutionary than it is malice. That which eats its own tail, not chase its own tail, but literally captures it and consumes it, situates itself in a full circle positioning so that things may flow in a constructive nature, so that one's continuity and maturity and mastery goes uninterrupted, all through self reflection, self reflexive, re examining one's judgments, passions, perceptions, impressions. So here's the parting gift. The keynote is to move from being process oriented. I'm sorry, the dog barking, it distracts me each and every time. The key is to move from being from the lens of of result oriented. So we're moving from the lens of results oriented to process oriented, meaning that we're not going to be focusing on the results. We're going to be focusing on our engagements with the process. And if you are one that is very self reflective, you already know that the prize is in the intention and the processing. And most results oriented people will always say, you have to dismiss your intentions because this is how it actually turned out. I beg to differ. We can never be 100% guaranteed in how something is going to turn out or manifest. It's too many non physical entities at play for us to arrogantly believe that always and forevermore, the way we set out to do something is how it's actually going to manifest. And so that feels like fool's gold to me. So I offer the provocation that we switch the lens. Shout out to Light Watkins. Through his messaging came the influence for me to dig deeper into how I view things with regards to being process oriented or results oriented. So, even if you are naturally a results oriented type of being, may I ask that during the energies of the new moon in Gemini, that you give it a try and become emotionally invested in directing your attention toward your intentions and how you process within those intentions, and allow the results part of it to awe you. Invite the magical essence into the results and just become the receiver of the magical gift called results. And so here's my closing remark. Teach the scholar to intuitively fish for context as well as content, and it shall learn to feed its mind, its body, and its soul. With that, I thank you for joining me. It's been a blast for me. I hope that you are able to pull information that will populate your journals, that will transmute into some type of legacy foundation that will serve you and yours well. And I know that that was so fluffy, but that's where I'm at right now. I feel very poetic. I feel prolific right now. So we're going to take it as it comes. So with all that said, I thank you for joining me and I wish you well.